Hello, well, I am Mark Hawkman, obviously, but as a little bit of a background, years ago, and it has been several years at this point, I was a member of the Foundry Roundtable podcast. As you can see, that stopped about 8 years ago, and that was because of the fact that the Foundry Roundtable was about doing what was basically fan fiction writing using an in-game mission editor tool in Star Trek Online. And, me and several other authors worked on that, and it was fun while it lasted. Then the mission editor quit working, and the devs discontinued it. It was unfortunate, but whatever. Like I said, it was fun while it lasted. Anyways, moving on. A big part of this experience and talking about use of this mission editor tool was centered on how to tell good stories using the mission editor as a medium, and mostly using the Star Trek intellectual property as a background. So you're telling Star Trek stories, and there's a variety of ways those can go. Which I'll get back to why it's the Star Trek thing is significant later. So let's get on with it. Here we have a video from Smash JT where he is reacting to a video from Master of the TDS and Writing Raven, who are doing commentary on Amberlee's video that she posted at the GDC. Okay. Well, I'm not going to play the entire video. I mean, the original, the Master of the TDS and Writing Raven did is a lot shorter but quite frankly, I don't really feel like commenting on the majority of it. It's there, but it's not really something that I personally feel is inspiration to talk about. But there are a few parts. So let's go.
What is this, reloaded all over again? Wait, this is before reloaded.
So let's get into examples of what I've...
Yeah, she's talking... Her presentation is about stealing ideas. Here's the thing. She's using this guy whose name I forget. And I can't read this thing here, it's too small. Now, here's the thing. The guy whose work she's, and by she I mean Amberlee here, is citing, actually, to my understanding as someone who's never read his book, is actually explaining the difference between actually stealing something and merely taking inspiration from something. And, he's basically just like, this is what is okay, this is what is not okay. I can't really get any more details because, let's face it, I didn't read his book. I've heard of it, I've talked about it, and that's as far as it goes. Here's the thing. She's emphasizing the stealing aspect of this whole thing when the original was kind of tongue-in-cheek. Because it's like, if you actually pay attention to what he's saying, it's not stealing in the intellectual property theft sense. It's, yeah. Anyway.
Find more interesting in books, and let's see what we can steal.
Good theft versus bad theft.
There is no such thing. If you're stealing ideas from books, it means you're not talented and your games suck. The fact that you can steal from books and still not make good games says a lot about you guys.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, one of the examples she uses for a book she was borrowing ideas from is a bad book. It's like, no, why are you borrowing that guy's ideas? They weren't good the first time. Then again, if you're someone who doesn't have good ideas of your own, seeing things that are bad ideas that someone else produced, well, maybe you'll make the mistake of thinking they're good ideas because you don't know what good ideas look like. Perhaps, I don't know. Trying to guess what people are thinking is difficult on a good day. Anyways,
Ugh.
I'm
How
sorry.
do you steal?
Is she teaching us how to steal right now? This is so weird.
So I got this idea for this talk from the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
oh, there you go. Yeah, she just said what his name was. I thought she did, but I didn't remember where.
It's about how
Hey,
to
at least credit where it's due. At least she's giving proper credit. She's not stealing properly.
pull from multiple mediums to create something that's
Actually, the point that Smash JT made there is actually a very good one. Is that how you acquire ideas is in the long term less important than making something that's actually good. That's something that we kind of mentioned on several occasions, is that while the definition of good is variable and art is subjective and all that and stuff, if no one likes it, then that means, yeah, anyways. And if you're trying to do it as a business, you need to think about, like, okay, how many people actually like this? And because that's actually one thing you'll see with a lot of people who do creative endeavors, is that they do, like, okay, here is what I want to do and I will do it my way, and then they start from that point of view, and then they realize, like, oh, you know what, people would like it better if I changed it a little bit. So they do that, and then it's just more profitable. Whether it's arguably better or not, that's completely beside the point for the most part. But from a business perspective, you want, business. If you're, writing a fanfic and only 5 people like your fanfic, well, whatever. You're not actually doing it for a business. Anyway, though, I'm kind of getting off track here, so let's get back to this.
truly your own.
If you are taking things from people and you are changing it enough just to make sure it doesn't look like you copied their homework, that's not yours. That's
Yeah, what Master TDS is going over here is actually one of those things where it's like kind of like the thin line between where you are. It's mostly the same, but only mostly the same, which, quite frankly, is not something I ever find myself actually doing. Because, one, it means that it doesn't have any of my ideas in it. So simply taking it and, adding your own spin to it will usually change it enough that you don't actually need to worry about that.
you copied their homework. You just changed how you worded it.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
So here's his definition of stealing: to honor, study, and credit these authors' works.
Whoa. I didn't even look at this. I've been so busy just reading the left side of this. The right side of this is good theft versus bad theft. Hey, what's okay to steal and what's not okay to steal? This
Yeah, this is one of those things that I kind of got inspired by. It's because, like, the way this is worded, the side that says good theft really shouldn't be calling it theft. It should not be calling it theft. Reusing ideas and so on. It's not theft. Because, like, one thing I mentioned earlier, and this is why I was bringing up the fact that the Founder Roundtable was focused on writing stories using the Star Trek intellectual property. Stories which were functionally fan fiction because we didn't ever get any profit off of it, but they were, such things anyways. Thing is, to make a good fan fiction, you have to reuse aspects of the source material. like it's the Star Trek intellectual property. So, say you're writing a story about a group of Orion pirates. Well, you're using Orions as they are defined in Star Trek, and you are building off of the in-universe history from Star Trek, which is what you would go with the whole credit thing, I guess you could say, because you're not retelling a specific story that has already been told. You are doing a new story using ideas that had already been established, which in that specific case of the Foundry Roundtable was explicitly the Star Trek intellectual property, but we're not actually copying any specific stories. We're telling new stories. Thing is, I would not consider this theft. That's the entire reason why I decided I wanted to make this video, honestly, is this is not theft. Ah, boy.
This is the ethics of stealing. What? How about this? Be original, or build ideas off of ideas that you've enjoyed before and want to make better, or in your image, or you saw faults in it and you.
This is another thing that's like parody and homage projects too. It's like one thing that people brought up is that the old Red Sonja movie, you have a character in there who is in everything but name Conan from the Conan the Destroyer movie, except that he's never referred to as Conan. He's a completely original character, allegedly, which the exact specifics of why they did that, I'm not entirely certain, but it was a very clearly inspired by character who kind of doesn't actually do what Conan does. Yeah, it's a little complicated to explain. Anyway, though. But it's an example of, doing your own thing using the same ideas instead of being a full-on copy.
You would want to change it to be a more fruitful experience for you. Honor, degrade.
That's not theft.
Guys, did you know the definition of stealing is to credit them and honor them? You're not stealing, you're crediting and honoring people. You're not, that's
Amazing.
That's so sad.
Absolutely amazing.
Oh my god.
Wait, bad theft is when you degrade, skim, steal from one, plagiarize, imitate, or rip off. So good theft is when you honor, study, steal from many.
Ow, freaking ad. Whatever. What I was going to say there is that the steal from many thing, what he's actually talking about, and this is something that we actually ended up discussing on the Foundry Roundtable several times, is that when you're borrowing ideas, mixing ideas from multiple sources will actually give you a better result than just trying to directly copying a single one. Because, for example, it's like you have an episode with Orion pirates. Like in Star Trek the Animated Series, one of the biggest uses of the Orions had Orions just hijacking random ships. They're not actually stealing anything particularly important, but it's stuff that they can, resell. Well, if you're going to do a story about Orion pirates hijacking ships, mixing that with pieces of a different story to make a third story that's drastically altered, hey, you know what? That's a thing. See, the thing is, though, that, again, I'm looking at that from a perspective of fan fiction writing, not making a new, unique intellectual property. And, that's actually one of those things where that all this stuff gets really complicated. It's like when you have to like legally declare it to be a new intellectual property where you're different enough to not be, you know, the same. A lot of the time it's easier to just like do like generic sci-fi tropes and don't go super specific in any reference, and borrowing ideas from multiple sources, well, you'll borrow ideas that are actually, you know, common tropes, not specific references. Like, you know, Star Trek has a lot of energy pistols, like phasers, disruptors. There's a long list. Well, having an energy pistol in your science fiction story does not constitute stealing from Star Trek unless you intentionally design it to look exactly like one of the ones from Star Trek, or if you do something like calling it a phaser. Because phaser is actually unique to Star Trek. Disintegration beam, on the other hand, that's not unique to Star Trek. That's actually not a unique intellectual property as far as I know. Anyway, though, yeah, that's all I really have to say. This is like, because like all this stuff with like telling stories and stuff. One of the things that we talked about a lot on the Foundry Roundtable is that truly new ideas are things that are so rare that almost never actually comes up when story writing. It's more common that people are reusing vague ideas from years ago. Like, you know, it's like there's a whole bunch of things that people told in stories 100 years ago that were science fiction that are tropes that got reused so many times over the years that no one's actually sure who is the first person to come up with them. It's when you like really, really like directly copy and like, as he phrases it here, plagiarize. It's like when you just like go through something and copy it directly instead of simply using similar ideas. And again, my whole point here is that this thing here should not be labeled theft. That was actually like the key thing I was going over here. So if it is in this category here, what he labeled, or she, I'm not actually sure which of these people did that label. I don't know if she swiped this chart from his book or if she simply got the idea from his book and labeled it herself. Either way, it should not be labeled good theft. To be something that meets the requirements of being okay, it no longer counts as theft. Simple as that. And that is that, I think. Alrighty then. See you guys later.